The game is over. The emotions are raw. But the takes are ready. It's time for Postgame Live with Jared Stillman.
Oh, that was ugly. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. That was ugly.
Boy, was that ugly. And not that it wasn't expected, although I did pick the Titans to win this game here on Postgame Live. Welcome to the program, Stillman and Company. The Tennessee Titans fall 31-13 to the great Mike Vrabel and the New England Patriots. They did not get the interim coach bounce, which I was assuming that they were going to get. Oh, it was bad. Oh, it was so ugly. And I have to say, when the Titans were able to get that touchdown, the deep one to Chimere DK, I actually thought they may have a possibility to win. I actually thought, hey, maybe the Titans are going to pull this out. The interim coach bounce, the Vrabel special, everything that we have come to know from Vrabel and from the Titans and everything else. But the answer was no. No, the Titans are so bad. They are so poorly coached. And it's not just the head coach. It's everybody on that coaching staff. And apparently when it comes to bad halftime clock management, apparently that's everybody in the coaching staff, not just Brian Callahan, though Brian Callahan sucked. But I guess it's everybody. And so today on Postgame Live, I have a message for Amy Adams-Strunk. And that's what I want to start Postgame Live on. Yes, I thought the Titans were going to win. I felt the Vrabel special, the interim coach bounce. I felt like it was enough for the Titans to find a way to win. And I was wrong because this team is so bad. Now hit the like and subscribe button, please. We'd love it for you to like. We'd love it for you to subscribe. Get in here. Tell your friends. Again, Stillman and Company every weekday, 2 o'clock for the Stillman and Company program. By the way, we may have a second daily show coming here very soon. We're working through the details on that, but I'll leave that be for right now. Like and subscribe. So I thought they were going to win. And they early on actually started off like they had a pulse. Then Jeffrey Simmons got hurt. And once Jeffrey Simmons went out of the game, the Titans defense became 11 tackling dummies versus the New England Patriots. And I loved watching Drake May play today. Like Drake May, he's athletic, but he's not trying to run. He throws a beautiful pass. He throws a great deep ball. He's accurate. He throws a catchable ball. I mean, I freaking love this Drake May. I loved him coming out, and I love him right now watching him play. But there's no real way to know if Drake May's any good or not after watching today, simply because the Titans defense was so shitty. Drake May just sat back there and did whatever the hell he wanted to do. And I have to say, when it comes to the Titans and when it comes to this mess, even though, again, I don't think that Mike Vrabel is as good as everybody's making it out to be. The optics are, you morons, you hillbillies, you fired Mike Vrabel because you thought you were so smart. And now here you are, and you don't have a freaking clue as to what you're doing. And your team is so unwatchable and so terrible that Mike Vrabel now has won 5 games with the New England Patriots in a quarter of a season, and you've won 4 games since he left. And there's no way to avoid that, even though, again, I think that is an absolute oversimplification of a reality that I think that Mike Vrabel probably would have only made things worse if he had remained on as Titans coach. So, I want to start with this. Forget about how the game played out, or again, I thought that they had some life, and when Simmons went out, it was zero resistance at all levels of defense post-Simmons. And Brian Callahan got fired this week. That's something that I would have done weeks ago. But the truth is, and Amy Adams-Strunk, you need to hear this. Kenneth Adams, you need to hear this. Barclay Cunningham Adams, I don't know what the fuck you do. I don't even know who you are. But you need to hear this. They need to blow up the entire organization. They won't sell the team. If I had a vote, I would vote that they do sell the team, because whatever Amy Adams Strunk didn't do to allow the football team to be successful from 2016 to 2021, she apparently can't help herself now. But she's got bad people around her giving her bad advice because they have no idea how the NFL works. And it is abundantly clear. So I hope she hears this in the rage that I am certain she is in right now after getting embarrassed by Mike Vrabel with her incompetent coaching staff and the overdrafted quarterback who has terrible mechanics and the front office committee that is inspiring zero hope amongst the fans. How do you not, if you're Amy Adams Strunk, feel the egg on your face when the fans at the end of the game are chanting Vrabel, Vrabel, Vrabel? Granted, most of those were probably Patriot fans who were still there, but still, that's embarrassing. So I hope she hears this, because again, I think most of all of the commentary surrounding her and the Titans after today is going to be the finger wagging of, how dare you fire that incredible Mike Vrabel? And I'm not there. I understood why they fired Vrabel. I would have fired Vrabel if I owned the team. I get it. I'm not knocking it. But what has happened since they fired Vrabel has been an abomination. So I'm hoping that they hear this. It is time to blow up the whole thing. You don't have to do it today, and you don't have to do it tomorrow. But at some point, when it becomes time to turn the page, blow it all up. And blow up the entire organization from the top on down. CEO Burke Nihill, fire him. President of Football Operations, Chad Brinker, fire him. GM Mike Borgonzi, and I don't exactly know what he does or what he's responsible for, and he might actually have a shot to be a good general manager, I don't know, but fire him too. Because you need to start over. The coaching staff is a total disaster. They make zero adjustments during the game, and they're not really developing any young players. And again, it's Brian Callahan's coaching staff, but it is the coaching staff as a whole that is as abysmal as Callahan was. How many times do we have to see Cody Barton spying Drake May only to see the fact that Cody Barton can't run with Drake May? And is Denard Wilson, who only got the job of defensive coordinator because he was buddies with the incompetent Rand Carthon, is he going to make an adjustment? Of course not. They traded away Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who actually can play corner in the NFL, to put in number 18, Jalen Armour Davis, who is terrible. So again, it's time to start over. And it's time to move on from every way with which you've done things, which was all under Burke Nihill. At first, it was John Robinson. Then it was Vrabel. Then it was Rand. Then it was Brian Callahan. And I feel as if Brinker is next. And I have no sympathy for Brinker because I don't think Brinker's qualified for the job he has. But he right now is in charge and he'll probably get blamed next. And how about this? Instead of getting rid of everybody one at a time, the way the Titans just keep getting rid of everybody one at a time, let's just get rid of everybody all at once. Instead of waiting, well, maybe this guy could be good. Let's not. It's time to blow it up. And while, again, there's a chance that by throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you might actually lose a potentially good general manager in Mike Borgonzi, or a potentially good assistant coach who's on this coaching staff that we don't know is actually the next Bill Walsh. But that's a risk I'm willing to take. I saw the Albert Breer report yesterday that the Titans are going to have Chad Brinker and Mike Borgonzi lead the search for the next head coach. Oh, yes, a committee. Zero transparency as to who's actually leading the search. Zero accountability. so that when that coaching hire flops, we won't know who to blame. Well, did Brinker want that guy or did Borgonzi want that guy? Who wanted to hire him? The committee did. It allows individuals to place blame behind the scenes on other people. And that's what this organization loves to do. They love to make decisions as a committee so that not one individual person can get blamed and they can avoid the wrath for job preservation under Amy Adams Strunk. And that is the same bullshit that got you and your organization into this giant mess in the first place. Everything over there is rotting. I listened to Taylor Zarzour call parts of the game today. On the first play of the game, he mispronounced Jelani Tavai, the linebacker for New England, just butchered his last name. I can't even remember how he did it, but it was awful. And I remember listening to Zarzour when they came back for the second half. Guys, no disrespect. I don't know the guy. He might be a great guy, but he is terrible when it comes to calling the game. He has no business calling football games in the NFL. He might be good at calling golf, but he is awful at calling a game in the NFL. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm a believer that how you do anything is how you do everything. And you want to know why Taylor Zarzour was hired? Because the organization, from my understanding, wouldn't get off their asses and commit to Mike Keith. So Mike Keith found somebody who would, and then they put together a committee to decide on the play-by-play guy. Jonathan Hutton's sitting out right there. The guy's been a part of Titans radio. The guy knows the Titans. The fans know Jonathan Hutton. And instead, they get a committee together and they hire Taylor Zarzour because Eric Church and Jim Nantz endorsed the hire. And because, hey, Eric Church, that's a big name. Jim Nantz, that's a big name. The committee endorsed it. And that's great. Again, I don't care how you get your job, but he stinks. And I heard him call the game today. And he's not good. And it's not, he's replacing Mike Keith. He doesn't belong calling games in the NFL. He shouldn't be calling play-by-play on NFL games for Compass Radio Network, much less for a team. And once again, I'm a believer that as an organization, how you do anything is how you do everything. They had a committee hire Brian Callahan. And so I say get rid of the committees and start running this thing like a real football team. And I begged them to do that years ago when they moved off of Mike Vrabel. I said, blow it up and go get somebody with experience to come in here and run the organization. And instead, they promoted Rand Carthon and they promoted Chad Brinker with zero proof of concept that Carthon or Brinker knew how to run a football team. Zero. Then they hired a coach. And after that didn't work out, they fired Rand with proof of concept that the coach that was selected by Rand Carthon's committee could actually coach. And so with that coach that they don't know can coach, that was handpicked by the committee led by the general manager, who you've now fired, you let them draft a quarterback with the first overall pick. So if that coach can't coach, and the guy who hired that coach you think can't be a good general manager, if that coach can't coach with that roster that was so heinous that you laughed when you were asked if you could win the Super Bowl, you knew, hey, if we draft this quarterback and it doesn't work out, we're going to be firing the coach so that a new coach will inherit a bad roster with a quarterback he didn't pick without any resources to actually make it better. And that's where they sit now. Worst case scenario is playing out in front of us. So this is how I see it. And this may hurt people's feelings, but again, I don't care. All I care about is whether or not the Titans are going to be good. The way I view it is this. Burke Nihill was an instrumental factor in Rand Carthon being hired. I think Burke Nihill was an instrumental factor in Mike Vrabel being fired and losing the power struggle, or whatever you want to call it, to the incompetent Ran Carthon. Now, the Titans are being run by Carthon's assistant general manager. And Carthon's assistant general manager, Chad Brinker, has picked a general manager. So what do you think about this? The next head coach will be picked by the incompetent general manager's assistant general manager and handpicked GM. And if Ram was so incompetent, which he was, why are you entrusting his lieutenant and his lieutenant's handpicked choice to fix the problem? Why are you not just ridding yourself of anything and everything that has to do with the incompetence that got you in this mess in the first place? But for some reason, they think their way's better. And could Mike Borgonzi be a good general manager? Absolutely. But I know everybody else is bad. I know Burke Nihill doesn't know what he's doing. I know Chad Brinker doesn't know what he's doing. So I'd rather get rid of all of the bad and maybe a little bit of good gets thrown out, or potentially good gets thrown out, than hold out hope that the new committee that's going to select the next coach and is going to build the infrastructure so that this number one pick, who I think might already be a bust, isn't a bust, can succeed. That 10% of the room might know what they're doing. Again, they'll have a committee that'll pick the coach, and it'll be roughly the same people that picked the last coach, with Mike Borgonzi in and Ran Carthon out. So there will still be Burke Nihill, and there will still be Amy Adams Strunk, and there still will be Bryce Wasserman, and there still will be Chad Brinker. So you have to hold out hope that one chair in that room knows what they're doing, even though they were picked by all the people that, again, we've documented don't know what they're doing. And then that one guy who might know what he's doing actually gets a say in all of this. And that's what you have to hope happens. So once again, Amy, Kenneth, Barclay, the owners of the Titans, hear me out. Get rid of everyone. You don't have to do it today, but at the end of the season, before another important decision is made, i.e. the next coach, get rid of everyone. Get rid of Burke, who picked Ran and got rid of Vrabel. Get rid of Chad, who was picked by Ran. Get rid of Mike, who was picked by Chad. And go get somebody who has experience in the NFL. Let them rebuild this team, go home to Houston, and shut your mouths. And that may sound disrespectful to the people that own the Titans, but somebody has to tell this organization the truth. And that somebody is going to be me. You can't be more embarrassed than they are today. Mike Vrabel came in here and predictably put his foot up your ass. Your coaching staff that you hired because Vrabel wasn't good enough proved before the end of their half their complete and total incompetence. The quarterback you drafted number 1 overall looks like a bust and is fumbling away touchdowns with zero pressure from the other team forcing him to do it. So you may not want to hear the truth, but if I sat down with you the day you fired Mike Vrabel and I said, this is what's going to happen, you all would have said, there's no way. Rand's too smart. Chad's too smart. Burke's too smart. Brian Callahan is too smart. We're too good to let this happen. But the proof is in the pudding. Mike Vrabel has won 5 games in 7 tries, and you have won 4 games in 24 tries. It's time to do things differently. It's time to blow it up. Now, the Vrabel part of this, and I'm sure Vrabel will have something to say that is completely and totally passive aggressive. Just totally passive aggressive at the podium today. I will give Vrabel credit because I think Vrabel, spent all week downplaying his return and everything else. And I don't know how Mike Vrabel has pulled what I consider to be one of the greatest cons of all time. But this belief that everything good that happened to the Tennessee Titans was because of Mike Vrabel and everything bad was not because of Mike Vrabel is amazing. If I owned this football team, and I admit, Mike Vrabel winning today by 100 points doesn't really help this, but I am so over the narrative that Mike Vrabel was such a good coach and that the Titans fired him and they'll never recover because they fired Vrabel, and Vrabel wasn't the problem, and he was a big part of it. And I do not understand how you can be intellectually honest and act like 2023 didn't happen, or that Vrabel was going to have a plan to get the organization out of the mess they were in. I also kept looking at this Will Campbell, who they drafted with the 4th overall pick in New England, and I'm like, this guy looks like a guard. I know he has the short arms, and I don't care about that, but just his body type, he looks like a guard. But again, they won, so it's going to be the great Mike Vrabel. They're 5-2. They're headed to the Super Bowl. Titans are stupid, and that's fine. But I don't buy that. And I feel bad for them because I would have made the same decision to fire Vrabel. Now, I would have fired Rand Carthon too. I would have completely cleaned house, and I would have done everything because I am convinced. I'm convinced that, again, this Vrabel narrative was completely and totally overblown. And some people, man, they just think Mike Vrabel can do no wrong. It's like they should have let Vrabel run the team. Really? Because when Vrabel had some modicum of power, Andre Dillard played left tackle. Jalen Duncan also played left tackle. Nicholas Petit-Frere played right tackle. Aaron Brewer plays center. This team was terrible. Terrible. Hodling as the offensive line coach. Tim Kelly calling the plays. You think they had a plan to get this team out of that mess? But credit to Vrabel. They came in here and absolutely butt-fucked the Titans. And the truth is, everybody for the rest of the year is probably going to come in here and absolutely butt-fuck the Titans because they are so bad. And I have to tell you, and this is the second part of this, I think they whiffed on the number 1 pick. First, let me tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. By the way, we cannot run the Titans press conferences because the Titans have decided that too many people were streaming their press conferences, and they want you to go watch their press conferences on their channels because I guess they feel like those are the important things to worry about and not, winning football games. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. They are my guys. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Hiller has been in business since 1990. They are family owned and operated. They have 100% satisfaction. Of happy you'll be or the service is free. And if a customer is not pleased with the work that is performed, Hiller will make it right. So learn more by visiting happyhiller.com. That's professional, experienced, trustworthy technicians that come into your home and they leave it clean and better than they found it. Care is their core value, and they believe that when they care about others, everybody wins. And they'll take care of the customer on every job, every time. Hiller, proud supporters of the Nashville Predators, the Vanderbilt Commodores, and the Tennessee Volunteers. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. Okay, Cam Ward. So I watched the beginning of the game, and on the first drive, there was a throw where I believe it was Io Manor, but he was open, and Cam threw it, and it wasn't even close. And I said, there we go. There's another Blake Bortles ball from Cam Ward. And if Cam Ward does not learn how to become an accurate passer, and most of these guys do not learn, Josh Allen is the exception. He is not the rule. Most of these guys do not learn how to become accurate passers. And I said, if Cam Ward does not realize how to become more accurate, then this is not going to work because you have to be able to make the simple open throws in the NFL. Go look at New England's guy. New England's guy can make these simple and open throws. He also can make these spectacular throws. So then in the second drop, Cam fires a ball right there in the gut for Chimere Dike. And then he throws the ball deep down the field, and it was a beautiful throw, and it was a beautiful catch, and everybody there was drinking the Cam Kool-Aid, and I get it. I get it. I saw it, and people were saying, wow, like that was something. Woo! And I even said, hey, if you can get Cam to throw the ball like that on a consistent basis, you might have something. And then the rest of the game, it was Cam Ward's inaccurate ball. I don't know what in the fuck Mike McCoy was doing before the half, but that was a shit show. That was embarrassing. You get the ball back. The Patriots score because once Simmons went out of the game, the Titans truly had no resistance on defense. It's like you could have brought out NBA's JV team on defense against the Patriots. They ran the ball for like 7 yards a crack, and whenever Drake May dropped back, he just patted the football and then threw it down the field, and L'Jarius Sneed, I guess, isn't playing hard, or, oh no, it's his quad again, whatever bullshit you want to come up with. But Kayshon Boutte runs right by him. A guy who was picked, as Gentry Estes pointed out, a guy who was one picked after Jalen Duncan ran by L'Jarius Sneed, and it was a touchdown. And now all of a sudden you're down by 4, and you've got 3 timeouts and 40 seconds left. And I'm like, okay, you got to go. You are playing well offensively. New England gets the ball to begin the second half. So you get the ball. So you've got to go. All right, let's see. 2-minute offense. You practice it every week. You know it's a possibility. You've got 3 timeouts, and really you're playing for a field goal. You're saying, okay, if we can get about 40 yards here, maybe 50 yards, and we're in Joey Sly's range, and we're going to try a 50-yarder, or maybe something better happens, who knows? And they run the fucking ball on first down. And I saw that, and I thought, man, what a bunch of pussies. I mean, just running the ball up the middle to go to halftime. New England gets the ball back. They have all the momentum. It's a 4-point game. You just run the ball right up the fucking middle. Give me a break. And so they let the clock tick down. Then they started going no huddle. And somehow they had to end up punting back to the Patriots. And I said, oh my God, this coach might just be as stupid as the last coach, because that's something the last coach would have done. And then I thought the end of the game, New England gets the ball back to start the second half. The Titans have 0 resistance on defense because, once again, Jeffrey Simmons is the only good player apparently that they have. And Jeffrey Simmons is hurt. And so they have no resistance on defense. And New England's just doing whatever they want. If Drake May wants to throw it, they complete it for 13 yards. If they want to run it, they gain 7. If Drake May wants to run it, he gains 12. Roger McCreary brings down Drake May. His back of his head hits the turf. He gets brought out of the game by the independent neurologist. Josh Dobbs goes in there, and the Titans draw up a blitz, and Cedric Drake can't tackle him. See ya. Ball game over. In comes Drake May. Touchdown Patriots. How about the 4th down or 3rd down? I think it was 4th down. How about the 4th down, where the Titans, instead of pressuring to the line of scrimmage, played off? So even though Drake May made a bad throw, the guy had no pressure to adjust to it and catch it because Cody Barton was standing there with his head up his ass. So that's the football team you have. Terrible coaching, terrible players, terrible ownership, terrible management. And I just don't know if there's any way to get out of it. And again, you drafted a quarterback number 1 overall. You drafted a quarterback number 1 overall who traditionally does not have the talent of a number 1 overall quarterback. And I tried to stress this at the time. We all went into the draft process saying the quarterbacks in this draft class aren't very good. That was what everybody believed, that Cam Ward was a 1st-round pick, but he wasn't that good. Shedeur Sanders was probably a 1st-round pick, but he wasn't that good. And then there were some other guys in there like Jackson Dart and Will Howard, and it was a bad quarterback draft. And there were quarterbacks out there that you could gobble up in free agency and you could sign right away, and may not be Mahomes, but you could sign them right away and get competent quarterback play. And instead, somehow the Titans let Cam's personality decide, no. Even though he doesn't have the tangibles of a Drake May, who is a top quarterback prospect, or of a Jaden Daniels, or of a Caleb Williams, or of a Trevor Lawrence, or of a Joe Burrow, or of those guys. Even though NFL evaluators ranked Mac Jones and Justin Fields and Anthony Richardson ahead of Cam Ward coming out, we got to take him number one. With a roster that has no infrastructure for him to be successful, one good player on it, and I knew that wasn't going to work out. And that was with a coach who, again, after last year, I think we had to question whether or not that guy could coach. And here we go. Now you've drafted him. Now everybody's told me, Jared, he is Mahomes. And you didn't make the trade with the Giants, and you put him with a bad coach, and you put him on a bad team, and now he's out there, and now he's fumbling away touchdowns to the other team. And I said, either I'm wrong, and he's Joe Burrow, or you're going to blow this. And I said last week, again, this isn't breaking news that I think Cam's going to be a bust. I think Cam's going to be a bust. And every time I say that, somebody says to me, well, Jared, that's not totally fair. It's only been 6 games. And I guess now in this case, it's only been 7 games, Jared. That's not totally fair. Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay. You guys keep waiting. You guys give it another year. See, because this is what happens. Is you'll say, well, we can't make a decision now. The same way you said after last year, we can't make a decision on Brian Callahan. Now we have to give him a quarterback, and then we have to see it, and now it fucks everything else up. The same way that Burke Nihill convinced Amy Adams Strunk that Rand Carthon needed more power running the organization, even though I knew in March. Rand Carthon was hired in January, and I knew by the NCAA tournament that Rand was absolutely in over his head. So, again, you guys can keep waiting on it. I don't see an infrastructure in place to fix the issues that exist with Cam Ward. But I know how this works. So what will happen is we'll all say it's too early. Every time he fucks up, we'll say, well, he's a rookie and it's not that, that bad. It'll be okay. And then next year, the same stuff will happen because the committee will hire a coach and they will undoubtedly fail at that because they are incompetent. And then this time next year, everybody will say, well, we need to start thinking about the next quarterback because that's how the NFL works. And that's just, I hate it. But again, that's how the NFL works. And I saw my buddy Buck, who I was texting with during the game. And I was saying the same thing I said after the one practice I went to in training camp where I said, I think I'm looking at Blake Bortles. And Buck was like, I dare you to tweet that. I'm like, I've said it 100 times. And I saw my buddy Buck tweeted out that he said they should have taken the Giants trade. And I said to Buck, whoa. Buck said, Cam Ward or we riot. Because the popular Twitter mob mentality had gone from the quarterback class this year stinks to Cam Ward is Mahomes. And everybody who doesn't have an individual thought can't be a critical thinker. And I think Buck can be, but I think he got too caught up in the bullshit on this. Just completely ignored everything we had heard before we decided that Cam Ward was the next Mahomes. So again, you guys can say whatever you want. The touchdown pass to DK was a great throw. And Cam will tease you with that. I mean, Cam's got talent. But the development plan for Cam and the shortcomings that Cam has, I'm telling you, I think this guy's going to be a bust. And it may not be his fault because a lot of people will say, well, that's not fair to Cam to sit there and say that he may be a bust. That's not fair. I get it. But the NFL's not about fair. Life is not about fair. It is reality. That again, every mistake Cam makes this year, they'll shrug it off and say, hey, you know what? He's a rookie. He'll learn. He'll learn. And then next year, you'll start to get a little frustrated. And then the year after that, you'll say, well, we got to give him one more chance. And then the next year, you'll draft another quarterback. I think that's where the Carolina Panthers are right now. The first year, they traded away everything to get Bryce Young. They had no team out there. And so they fed Bryce Young to the Wolves. The second year, they still had no team out there because all their picks were with the Chicago Bears. And they were equally awful. And then they benched Bryce Young for a couple games. And then they put him back out there because they're kind of pot committed. And now he's their starting quarterback. And I don't watch the Panthers, so I couldn't tell you how he's doing. But if they don't do well, they'll say, oh, well, he's not as good as we thought, and we need a better quarterback. Because that's how this league works. And then a smart team that's patient, that waits for their opportunity, with a good general manager that knows what they're doing, sits there and just says, oh, okay, we'll take the recycled junk that apparently nobody else wanted. We'll go ahead and take Baker Mayfield to Tampa Bay. We'll go ahead and take Sam Darnold to Seattle. And that's why those organizations keep winning. And you guys keep losing. So I just have a hard time when it comes to the path the Titans are on, seeing any way that they ever recover from this embarrassment if they do not completely and totally blow up the operation. Burke needs to go. Brinker needs to go. Borgonzi needs to go. The coaching staff needs to go. All of the narratives that they have told you and told themselves, they're all phony. Burke Nihill's never won anything in the NFL in his life. Never anything. He needs to stop making decisions or influencing Amy's decisions. He needs to go. Chad Brinker needs to go. And again, not to say that Borgonzi couldn't be a good general manager, but the Titans and their fans have this weird way of deciding that everything is one person's fault. And instead of blaming the collective, instead of blaming the group, what they do is they sit there and they say, okay, well, it was all this guy's fault, and now this guy is going to lead us to the promised land. And that's what's happening with Borgonzi, which is, oh, it's all Callahan and Brinker. Fuck them. Borgonzi is going to lead us to the promised land. But remember, Borgonzi was picked by Brinker. So if you think Brinker is a moron, and I do, then all of a sudden you're now saying, well, but I trust the guy that Brinker hired. And that's stupid. Now, I don't think Borgonzi is as incompetent as Rand. I don't really have any feel on Mike Borgonzi. In fact, if my feeling of watching Mike Borgonzi sit up there at the press conference on Monday, just completely disinterested because he knew he screwed the pooch and he should still be assistant general manager in Kansas City and wait for a real general manager job in a functional organization, then that would tell me that he has more brain cells than the people that he's working with. But I'm not certain of that. I don't know him. And more importantly, he came from the people that I know don't know what they're doing. Rusty says in the chat, 9 rings. You know what's funny? Chad Brinker already used that line when trying to explain to people, we know what we're doing, when Brian Callahan was the coach, and included Brian Callahan's Super Bowl and saying we had 10 rings. The Chad Brinker thing is such a scam. It's so unbelievable. It's such a scam. Last year, or I guess I should say this year, it was in January. They fired Rand, and remember how they did it. It was on a Tuesday. They just put out a press release where Amy said the results haven't been what we've liked, and so we're moving on from Rand Carthon. And then Burke Nihill came out and said Chad Brinker was now going to be the final decision maker of football because the Titans have learned that you can't have this thing where it's completely ambiguous as to who's in charge like they did with Vrabel and Carthon. So they put out there that Brinker's the final decision maker. And me and the fan base all went off and said, why would you do that? Why is Chad Brinker in charge? So the Titans then launched their PR campaign where Brinker and Nihill started calling everybody and started talking to them about, no, here's our plan. And I had people that I know knew better. And if I told them today, hey, remember I told you, you know better. And they say, yeah, we knew better. But people that were saying, hey, talk to Brinker, and Brinker's kind of got some of a plan there. And I said, I know this is that bullshit. I know it's not going to work. I know it's all just horseshit. And I say this because somebody from the Titans said to me, when I said, I got to ask this question, why is Chad Brinker qualified to run the Tennessee Titans? Chad Brinker was hired with Amy Adams Strunk kind of as a passenger in all of this, as the assistant general manager to Rand Carthon. Now, again, the owner's involved on big decisions, but I don't even know if the owner gets involved in those kind of decisions, who the assistant general manager is. The owner gets involved when it's who's going to be the head coach, who's going to be the quarterback, how much money do we need to spend on a coaching staff, how much money do we need to spend on our roster, a star player like Derrick Henry. That's where the owner should and normally gets involved. And so I said, as I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, what did Chad Brinker do to grease the wheels with Amy Adams Strunk to get him this job? And somebody with the Titans said to me, well, you don't think the work he did with the Green Bay Packers means something? And I looked at them and I said, no, I don't. I think that's what got him the assistant general manager job. And from that point forward, the Titans either convinced themselves or were just being insanely dishonest in their defense of Brinker, but they were of the belief that Chad Brinker knew what he was doing. And here you are. You're worse than you are last year. You're certainly worse than you were 2 years ago. And you're absolutely worse than you were 3 years ago, when at this time through 7 games, you were 4-3. You keep getting worse. Why are you constantly going back to the well? So I think everybody's got to go. And then I think whoever takes the job next, you got to be fair with Cam. You got to say, again, if you were to hire Rick Spielman, or you were to hire Thomas Dimitrov, or you were to hire just a litany of people that can run NFL organizations, if you were to hire one of these guys and you said you are in charge of the Titans and we're going back to Houston and let us know what you need, I would tell him, whatever you want to do with Cam. If you want to keep Cam, keep Cam. If you want to get rid of Cam, get rid of Cam. Whatever you want to do with Cam. Even though it would look so foolish after you turn down the Giants to take him, I just don't believe in throwing good money after bad. I don't believe in worrying about how things will work. I'm worried about what's going to happen going forward. And the worst part about this is I say all of this in earnest. I like Burke Nighhill. He's a nice guy. He is a likable guy. Though I do question how he is inside the building with the door shut, more so than he is to everybody in the public. But I got no problem with him, except for the fact that his fingerprints are all over this organization that I love, and this organization is a steaming pile of shit. So that's how I feel about the way things are going. I think they just need to blow it up and start over. And I say all of this with the knowledge in my heart that they won't do any of it. So let's get to your reaction. Get your reaction right in now on the YouTube chat here on Postgame Live, or if you want to get it in on the Twitter feed, you could do that. So again, Titans 31-13. And they had the lead late in the second quarter. And I don't know what Mike McCoy was doing before the end of the half, but I saw that and I'm like, any dream I had of this old veteran coach that could take things over and could really run a ball club, I'm like, yep, those are over. Scott in Clarksville says, Cam is the most inaccurate quarterback I've seen. So I remember watching the pro day when Cam Ward was out there at Miami. and we were running the ACC Network's broadcast of the Cam Ward Pro Day. And these guys from the ACC Network, and I have to tell you, I don't know what's happened to our society, but it has gotten so soft that if you are connected to a league or connected to a team, or you just blatantly now lie, you just say things that aren't true, because the decision makers will hear the things that are true and will turn around and fire you. And so if somebody works for a team, I love them, but I can't believe a single word that they say unless there's some veteran who was grandfathered in years ago to actually be allowed to give an opinion. So when I watched that pro day, I saw Cam missing throws, shorts and t-shirt, throwing it over guys' heads into the end zone and things like that of a completely scripted workout. And I'm like, what was so special about that shorts and t-shirt throwing performance that now all of a sudden they have to take them? And I kept watching the games and watching the tape. And I said on the tape, I go, his mechanics are not good. It's all arm. It's all let me drop back and whip it. And that may work in college where, again, this is open in college. This is open in the NFL. It might work there, but it's not going to work in the NFL. And what I noticed even in the preseason was Cam would have 2 or 3 inaccurate throws and then follow it up with a beauty of a dime. And I'd say, holy crap, what a great throw by Cam. But that was 1 out of 6 passes. The other 5 were all over the fucking place. And the problem with that is you can't be a good quarterback if 1 out of every 5 throws is accurate. And Cam really is struggling with his footwork. He's struggling with his mechanics. And once the Titans get down, all of a sudden they're trying to send 5 guys out into the passing pattern, and J.C. Latham can't block anybody, and now all of a sudden it's 2nd and 13. Zach says Cam might really be ass. Again, I think Cam has talent. I think there was a chance Cam could have been good, but not for this team. Not for this organization. People on Twitter are saying, I'm keeping all receipts of Cam Ward doubt. Seriously, if you're a Cam Ward doubter, please stay on that side and don't switch up once success keeps coming. You know, here's what I've noticed, and this is the unfortunate part of the job, and this is what a dude like Tic Tac Titan makes a fucking living on, is you can take social media and you can say what everybody wants you to say. And you can say Cam is that dude and Cam is Mahomes and Cam is awesome, and you can do everything you want to say Cam is great. And everybody will like it, and everybody will click on it, and everybody will believe. And then the second that the popular opinion turns, so does yours. And you say Cam sucks, and Cam's no good, and it was a bust of a pick, and I saw it with Levis, I saw it with Callahan, I've seen it with everybody. To me, I look at real media people, and I say, if you can have an opinion, back it up with facts, and stand by it. Even if it's not the popular opinion, you've got an opinion worth listening to. If you're just going to, again, say that in J-Rob we trust, John Robinson gets fired, and then you're going to say J-Rob stunk, then I don't have time for you. And that is the majority of Titans Twitter. So you guys can say, hey, we're going to be Team Cam. Well, I was Team Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's pretty good. But you know as well as I do, I would not be able to live that down if Sam Darnold was a total bum. The same way that, again, I told you if I was general manager of the Colts, I might have gotten fired because I would have drafted Anthony Richardson. But I think too many people want to live in this. I'm right now. I'm going to say what everybody wants to hear. And look at all the people that liked my tweet. And I don't have time for that. Daniel says Burke Nihill will never get fired. He delivered the new stadium deal. He has a job for life. So first of all, if Mike Vrabel got fired after winning Coach of the Year with 90 players, anybody in this organization could get fired. They fired their own brother-in-law in Tommy Smith. Now, I tend to agree with you that the stadium deal is the saving grace for Burke Nihill. And that is why everything related to Burke Nihill has become about the stadium and not about the football team, because he wants everybody to disassociate him with the football team. I actually think there was some strategy in giving Chad Brinker the president of football operations title, because it's like, well, now they have two presidents, and he's the business president and Chad's the football president. But in the end, that's bullshit, because Burke is Chad's boss and Burke is the CEO. They would not name Chad co-CEO. That being said, with all due respect, I don't think that stadium deal is really all that unbelievable of a get by Burke Nihill. Mayor Cooper knew he was on his way out, so he wanted to have something that he could look back on and say, that's my legacy as Nashville's mayor. And I'm sure he didn't want it to be everybody getting mad at him about COVID. So he needed something. And the stadium is generally something that a mayor can put their flag in and say, I did this. And the lease that Phil Bredesen negotiated with the Titans was so slanted in the Titans' favor. And this is how you get an NFL team in 1994 to move to Nashville, is you have to give them a good deal that they don't want to refuse. But basically, the Titans could have folded their arms and said, according to the lease, you have to make Nissan Stadium a first-class NFL facility. And we all know Nissan Stadium's a shithole. So you have to make it a first-class facility. So go ahead and make it a first-class facility, and you have to pay for it. So if they wanted to, they could have had the tax bill of Johnny and Bellevue go up to build them a first-class facility to renovate Nissan Stadium into a first-class facility. So the option was, hey, let's build a new stadium. You guys will make a lot of money, and let's throw in these revenue bonds so we can make the argument that Johnny and Franklin, or not Franklin because that's Williamson County, but Johnny and Antioch, his tax bill is not going to go up. But if you use the stadium, then that is where the tax money is going to come from. But as the opponents on the Metro Council kept pointing out to me, they kept saying, I mean, that sounds great. But again, the other alternative is all of that money is tax money that would have just gone to the government instead. So you're taking it away from somewhere. Anybody could have done that. I mean, I think I could have done that. You could have done that. I don't think that stadium deal is all that special. That's just me. I could be wrong about it, but that, again, the Titans could have stuck it to the city if they wanted to. William says, Titans fans are like the ones who keep choosing to deal with the cheating ex or abusive spouse and making every excuse in the book on how they'll change. You know what? I'm actually going to back Titan fans on this one. I don't think Titan fans are taking the bullshit right now. Now, it's easier to do that during the season, to not take it because you're bad and there's no way of talking around that. But I really believe that even after the year, when they hire a new coach, if they let Chad Brinker hire the coach, I think Titan fans are going to be doubtful when it comes to this organization and it comes to Brinker running anything. Now, I do think that this organization, and I say this about Mike Borgonzi because everything that I have seen and observed from Mike Borgonzi leads me to believe that Mike Borgonzi does actually know what he's doing, or at least has a resume that says he is qualified to be a general manager in the NFL. Chad Brinker does not have that resume. Mike Borgonzi has a resume that says he's ready to be general manager in the NFL. And if they were to turn it over to Borgonzi and let him pick a coach, then I think Titan fans would get behind that, and Titan fans would say, okay, that is legit and everything else. Then they would believe it, and it would be like going back to the cheating ex. And look, maybe Borgonzi knows what he's doing, but I would just say get rid of everything, and that includes Borgonzi. At some point, and I've said this because every time I've said blow it up, at least in the football operation, and it started with Vrabel and Ran, and I still have no regrets, by the way, of saying that the Titans needed to move on from Mike Vrabel. Every time I've said that, the Titans have done the opposite, and the pushback has essentially been, well, it's not fair to fire Ran Carthon after one season. Well, it's not fair to fire Brian Callahan after one season when he had a quarterback that was already there before he got there. And you'll probably tell me it's not fair to fire Mike Borgonzi for one season. Fair doesn't matter. I'm not worried about what's fair. I'm worried about what's best for the Titans. That's what I'm worried about. I've done the fair thing before. I know I come off as crass, but I'd like to think that I'm a pretty honest person. And I've worked with people before who I've been honest with, who then don't always give back the same sort of honesty. And it's very easy for me when thinking about those dynamics and those relationships. It's very easy for me to think, man, I shouldn't have been as honest as I was. But every time I start to think that, I go, you know what? No, I should have been honest. And it just shows me that the people that I was working with who were dishonest and who do lazy bullshit like celebrity birthdays, they are going to have to live with the fact that they're not going to ever get anything right. And I'm okay with that. And so when it comes to this, I'm just honest in saying, like, at some point, somebody has to get the boot after 1 year, and it's not going to be fair. And in the case of Borgonzi, it wouldn't be fair. But I'm doing what's in the best interest of the Titans here. One person says, Jared, please analyze Cam today because sports talk radio in Nashville tomorrow will not. So I was actually joking with somebody about this, about putting out a list of doing, because I saw the list in the Nashville scene that had the best radio shows. And I'm here to tell you that list is ridiculous. Now, Buck show's pretty good, but of like basically ranking the top shows in the city, I do think Buck is going to keep it as real as he can, as long as Twitter doesn't get mad at him, or Jelly Roll. He's going to keep it as real as he can. And Robbie and Joe, I think, are going to keep it real too. As for everybody else, I don't know what they're going to say. But the one thing that does bother me, I was in the car and I heard as I was driving and listening to the game, and again, I thought Taylor Zarzour was so bad on the radio broadcast. I think he is a microcosm of everything that's wrong with that organization. I heard 104.5 run a promo. Listen to Will Bowling and Ramon Foster tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, good. A sideline reporter for the Titans and somebody who's never been critical of anybody in their entire radio life. And that's sad. Like, for this city, that it's like there's just nobody anymore who tells it like it is. I mean, 104.5 has been the flagship station of the Titans for 25 years. And for years, they'd call out the Titans when things were really on the rocks. And now, again, I think Buck does keep it real, but I just don't think 104. And Blaine, I do listen to, I think Blaine's really good. But some of the commentary nowadays, it's just too much sunshine, rain. It's just too much go along to get along. It's too much. I don't want people to look at me funny when I see them in the elevator. And again, I've said I like Bert Nihil. He's been nice to me over the years, but I'd fire him because I think his hands are all over the Rand Carthon thing and the Chad Brinker stuff. And I think it's time to rid ourselves of all of that. And it's time to blow it up and move on. And again, this is somebody who I like, but I'll say it because I think it's what the team needs. Brett says, so glad I sold my season tickets at face value at the beginning of the year. Good for you, Brett. I got to tell you, having season tickets to the Titans is just, phew. Joseph says, Cam Ward fumbling machine. Chip says, Ward is no better than Levis, and he has a better line. You know, again, the comparison I have with Cam, and I've had this since the one day of training camp I went to, is I see Blake Bortles. And not exactly the same. Blake Bortles is bigger and probably a little bit more athletic than Cam. Cam is probably a little bit more fluid of an athlete than Blake Bortles. But I think it's equally the same, which is they have talent and they have traits and they can play quarterback in the NFL. But they're not consistently accurate enough for you to want them to play quarterback for you. I mean, how could you watch Drake May play quarterback for the Patriots and then watch Cam Ward and think, man, we're really on our way? Neil says Cam doesn't have big enough hands to hold on to the football. That's the sad part. Richard says side-armed and duck feet. Call it a day and find a quarterback. Again, I said this about Levis when I said that they needed to move on from Vrabel and Carthon. I said this about Levis. And I said, if I brought in a new general manager, I'd let the new general manager pick the coach. And then I'd tell the general manager, hey, you give me an evaluation on Levis. Are we rolling with him or are we going with somebody else? Because I could see a new general manager watching the tape and saying, not exactly my cup of tea. That's what John Elway did when he got to Denver and Tebow mania was going on. And he's like, yeah, I'll pass. And that's what I would have done. And that's what I would do with Cam. I'm not saying move on from Cam. I'm saying let's get somebody in here who actually knows football and let's let them decide what to do with Cam. And if you just think Cam cannot be an accurate enough passer to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL and you want to move on and you've got something better out there, go ahead and do it. Now, the reality is the toothpaste is out of the tube. You're stuck with Cam for a couple of years. You passed on Sam Darnold. Granted, there will probably be another Sam Darnold available in free agency this year. I don't know who it'll be. There will probably be somebody else you can go get, but the toothpaste is out of the tube with Cam, and you're stuck with him for the next couple of years. But if you wanted to win, as opposed to wanting to be right or wanting to make pieces that may not fit, then I would say you need to have that discussion after you blow up your organization with whomever is running your organization next. French says, Jared, would you fire the defensive coordinator? Let me say this. I cannot stand Denard Wilson and the narratives that surround Denard Wilson. This Titans defense fucking stinks. And the second Jeffrey Simmons goes out, they become the worst in the league. New England could have done whatever they wanted to do today. In fact, for the most part, they kind of did. And I know the players aren't good. And the Titans spent very little resources, very few resources on defense in the offseason. But at the same time, I mean, every game it's the same. And it doesn't matter who the other team's quarterback is, unless it's Snoop Huntley. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but everybody became obsessed with that Ravens defense a couple years ago. And Mike McDonald got a head coaching job. And Zach Orr got promoted to defensive coordinator in Baltimore. And Denard Wilson came over to the Titans. And Anthony Weaver got hired by the Dolphins. And all three of them are atrocious. And there was an article Diana Rossini put out in The Athletic where people around Baltimore, people around the league are saying they need to go back and get Dean Pease because it's so broken. And I feel that way about Denard Wilson. And because Denard Wilson, I guess, gives fiery interviews, people think this guy can be a head coach, but I need him to be a defensive coordinator right now, and I think he's terrible. And boy, Simmons is the only thing that defense has, and once he went out of the game, I said, pfft. One person said, Jared, is it me, or were you telling the Titans to stay away from Snead before they ever signed him? Don't even get me started on that. Every time I see Snead do something stupid, I think, let Rand cook, baby! Again, the Titans did it, and everyone's like, I trust Rand Carthon more than I trust you. Jamal says, let's bench Cam Ward. I don't even know if he's being serious when he says, let's bench Cam Ward. But when I saw that ball fall out, and again, it was Kaylavon Chazon who was the one that went and got the ball. And so when I saw the ball slip out of Cam's hand into the end zone for a touchdown, I thought, you need to bench him. But I'm like, again, not that you can. It reminds me of an interception Mariota threw against the Chargers in London where he just threw the ball right to the other team. And I was starting to have it up to here with Marcus. And I'm like, I used to play Madden as a kid, and it was like I wanted to hit the pause button and I wanted to, take him out and put somebody else in. But then I realized that Blaine Gabbert's the backup. So it's like, well, I guess I'm stuck with Marcus. Cam, when he fumbled that ball and the Patriots picked it up and ran into the end zone for a touchdown, I thought, get him out. And then it's like, well, but then again, if you do that, it becomes a huge story and a huge problem. And Brandon Allen's a backup, so no consequences for Cam, but there never really were consequences for Cam. So screw it. Again, that's what happens when you run an organization like Twitter. I don't know what to tell you, you know? And so it's, I don't know if he was being serious about benching Cam or not, but I would say, like, Cam has certainly played poorly enough to get a benching. And I don't mean that to be edgy. I'd say that Cam's really been that bad. Oof. Trent says, at least the GM didn't have to see this mess. Boy, I'll tell you, between UCLA, and I know UCLA looks like maybe they figured something else, but between UCLA and the Titans, I'll just put it to you like this. I don't like to speak for the old man because, again, the old man had different opinions than I thought he was going to have all the time. But Ian and I were texting yesterday, and we were talking about just how much we believe Floyd would not have been in favor of Chad Brinker after that press conference the other day. For whatever you wish to say that. Forrest says the Adams don't care. They just look at the way she treats her season ticket holders. How do they treat the season ticket holders? You know, the one thing that I have noticed about the Titans organization, and again, I made a big deal about this when they fired the PR director and when they fired Haas, the equipment guy. Now, that was a Vrabel thing. But when they fired Haas, the equipment guy who had been there for 50 years or whatever it was, and I made a big deal about this because I know people that are, you know, when they're good at their jobs, I know that you're better off with those people. But one thing that does seem very obvious to me, and I think this is a Burke Nihill thing, and maybe he doesn't want this to be the case, but I almost feel like this is just a reality, is that it does kind of feel as if they want everybody to be new. And they really don't give a rat's ass about people who were there before. And they don't really give a rat's ass about people who were good at their jobs because they just assume that everybody who they didn't hire is bad at their jobs. And I kind of feel like they treat the fans the same way too, which is, well, you know, we know that you've been a season ticket holder for 30 years and we appreciate that, but now we're going to ask you for a lot more money for PSLs. And if you can't buy them or you don't want to buy them, fuck you. And when you suck so bad, that is the feeling that a lot of people have, whether it is fair or not. There is a feeling that you're like, hey, we don't need Mike Keith. We don't need Robbie Bourne. We don't need Haas, the equipment manager. We don't need Anthony Pastrana. We don't need Brent Akers. We don't need all these people that have been really good at what they do for 30 years. We don't need any of them, and we don't need you. And it's hard as a fan to hear that when, again, it's pretty obvious that maybe you do need those kind of people. Because you doing it your way made you the worst team in the league last year, and it's making you the worst team in the league this year. Like, if you were to play the Jets right now, I would pick the Jets. One person says, I don't see a reason to keep starting Cam right now. At least get him out of these lopsided games where there's obviously no chance. Let me say this. The only reason to play Cam is because if you don't play Cam, it's like, oh my God, Tennessee is hitting the panic button, and now they are out on Cam. And that's just such a distraction that I don't think you want to deal with that. But I'm sorry. Cam stinks. And the coaching's probably not helping. And J.C. Latham, he's not helping. And the defense not getting stops and forcing you into passing games in the second half is not helping. And coaches that do not know how to manage the end of the game, that's not helping. But Cam in his own right's been awful. Richard says he was actually optimistic after watching the first quarter and then realized he was wrong. I have to tell you, I wanted to be right so bad about the Vrabel special. I wanted to be right so bad about that I kind of got into it in the first half. And then when Simmons went out of the game, I said, oh, they're fucked. Like, they had a chance, and then Simmons went out of the game, and it was like, goodbye, chance. And that's exactly how it played out. But I got excited when they took the lead. I kind of have to say, I kind of hate not running the press conferences live. I guess we can do that. I haven't seen the press conferences, but I kind of hate not running it live because then I don't know what they say. But again, the Titans want you to go to their social media channels. So I guess that's what they're going to do. I'll tell you, when it comes to the Titans, it's bad. And I'm sure Mike Vrabel got the last laugh, but I'm sorry. This is much bigger than Vrabel. You know, I see these things in the NFL where people start all of a sudden getting what I call head up ass syndrome. And I see Minnesota, for instance. And I'm like, remember Minnesota thought that they didn't need Sam Darnold because they drafted JJ and Kevin O'Connell. I coach him. I know. You'll see. And Minnesota, who lost 3 games last year, all of last year, is 3-3. And Carson Wentz had a quarterback rating of 64.9. And they're giving JJ McCarthy that soft benching. Again, you get your head so far up your ass sometimes in this league. When you think it's because of you, that's when you start to struggle in this league. Jim says, can we still trade Simmons? Well, the Titans are telling everybody that they're not interested in trading Simmons. I think the Titans should trade Simmons. And I actually think some of the reason that they wouldn't trade Simmons, and again, everybody always says they're not going to trade somebody even when they're going to trade them. Jerry Jones said, we're not going to trade Micah Parsons. Then he traded him. The Titans said they weren't going to trade A.J. Brown. Then they traded him. So just because they say that they're not going to trade him doesn't mean they're not going to trade him. But I actually think the Titans aren't going to trade him. And here's why I think the Titans aren't going to trade Simmons. Because if they trade Simmons, while I do think it is in the best interest of the franchise, assuming Simmons was healthy, to trade Simmons and get the future asset or assets for Simmons, I can see Chad Brinker saying if we trade Jeffrey Simmons, every game defensively is going to look like today's game, and I'm getting fired. And if I'm getting fired, well, then what good does that first-round pick do for me that I acquired for Simmons? Because I can't use the first-round pick. Trading Simmons would literally cause a riot. See, that's the problem. Is that when you say like, oh no, the fans will be mad about this, then now you're letting the fans run the team. And the old saying is, when you listen to the fans, pretty soon you're sitting with the fans. One person says, Jared, I've been a Titan fan for 25 years. I'm glad I found your channel because you don't sugarcoat anything. I'll tell you, look, man, I hate that this team sucks so bad. And I know that I want to be objective, and I do feel like I'm objective. Now, I feel like sometimes there are personal biases, and I, like everybody else, have some of them. You know, I want my opinion to be right, and I have a hard time admitting when it's wrong, although I do oftentimes point out things where I'm like, hey, if I was the general manager in Indy, maybe I would have gotten fired because I would have picked Anthony Richardson. But what bothers me the most about the entire mess that is the Titans, as a Titans fan, is that this organization, when it really comes to decision-making time, buries their head in the sand, puts their hand over their ears, and just goes, la, 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 and they cancel out any sort of reasoning. And they immediately go on the offensive with these narratives about why their decisions will work and why they are smarter than you. And some people are gullible enough to buy it. But if there was any example of how wrong they are, it was today, when the New England Patriots were taking knees and the fans were chanting in their own stadium, Vrabel, Vrabel, Vrabel. And so you ask, what will it take? Or you say, I appreciate that you don't sugarcoat anything. And I would just say, I have no interest in kowtowing to get paid. And look, financially, I'm in a place where I guess I can do that. And I think there are a lot of people that would be afraid to upset the apple cart because of what it would mean to them financially. And personally, I don't have that problem, or I don't care about that. What I care about is I care about the Titans being good. That's what I want. The Titans to be good. The Titans to give us entertaining Sundays. For us to not be sitting there in the middle of September knowing that the season is over. And I get very frustrated during the off seasons because there are no games. And the offseason in football is so much longer than these other sports. Like the MLS has an offseason of about 1 week, and then they're back to playing soccer. These other sports, they're off for a little bit, but then it's like they're right back. Football, they're off in January, and they don't come back until September. So when they don't lose games, they start to build their narratives, and people start to believe it because people want to believe it. And I just don't get into believing narratives because the way I look at it is that may make you feel good in June, but it's not going to make you feel good in September or October. And that's why I don't have any, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but I don't have any problem with saying the things I say because I know they come from here, the heart, because I know that they are representative of what I really believe is in the best interest of the Titans. Paul says, I mentioned Jared for the GM spot last year and I got blasted, but he is so right about a lot of things. Here's the thing. Again, I'm not qualified to be a general manager in the NFL, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that I couldn't do it. And the only reason that I think I could do it in the NFL is not because I understand the game, because I don't. If you were to sit down with me and you were to say, hey, this is a really important play we're about to run here. So, Jared, you tell us right now on a 22 bob what the responsibility of the four corners are. And I can't do that. I've never been trained in that. I can't. Floyd could look at a defensive lineman's butt and tell you exactly what it is that guy could or could not do. But the one thing that I do know is I know bullshit. And that's why I've been around people that know the game. And I'd hire those people. And I'd listen to them. And then I'd try to filter out the bullshit. And I think a no bullshit organization can go a lot further than what the Titans have been doing, which is an all bullshit organization, which is an all bury your head in the sand. Tell yourself Rand Carthon's a good general manager. Tell yourself Brian Callahan's a good coach because he's agreeable. Tell yourself that Chad Brinker's qualified for the job when he's not. And then hope it works out. Like if you were to say, Jared, I want you to draw up jet protection versus a 4-down front, or draw up a cover 4 and say what the number one responsibility of every corner is, I can't do that. And I wouldn't try to do that. But I do think I could see through the horse shit. That when Rand sits there in front of the media that's doing their job on draft night and they're asking questions about Tajay Spears' knee and Will Levis's turnovers in college, instead of saying, hey, we believe that we can do X, Y, Z, or we believe that Tajay's knee, we believe that, instead of standing up for your pick, gets on the media and says, this doesn't have to be so negative. And I'm like, oh God, this guy can't do the job. TDG says, tell yourself that J-Rob didn't fuck this team either. Don't forget that. Again, I think the two moves with J-Rob where I'm just like, I can't believe you did that, were the Caleb Farley one and the Julio Jones one. The AJ move didn't work out, but I understand it. And again, I'm a process guy. How you do anything is how you do everything. So if you've got a long drawn out process that leads you to trading A.J. Brown and you are justified in your decision and you feel like, hey, I am willing to put my career on this, then okay. Now, there is a consequence that may come with that if it doesn't work, and I understand that. But again, I don't understand how John Robinson gets all the blame, even though he won without Mike Vrabel, and Mike Vrabel gets all the credit, even though Mike Vrabel was 6-11 with Andre Dillard without John Robinson. I don't understand that. That's just me. Again, that's the way that when I talk about, like, I don't hear this bullshit. Like, the one thing I think I do is I sniff that stuff out pretty well. That's what I'm talking about. Now, there have been some times I've been fooled. I sat down with Brian Callahan after he got the job, and I thought, you know what? This guy might have the chops to be a semi-decent coach in the National Football League. Hey, a reminder to like and subscribe, of course, to the Stillman Company program. This is Postgame Live, which is presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. And by the way, there are some discussions. There may be a second pod, a second show that drops every day around, right now I'm thinking 9 a.m. would be when I want to drop it. There are some talks. I don't know what will happen. I don't know who will be managing that, who will be distributing and i.e. paying for that show. But if we were to do that, it would be more of a national show every day. NFL, college football, draft, that kind of stuff at 9 a.m. Pod probably up by 10:30, and then we'd still do the local show at 2. And so there are some discussions in the mix for that to become a thing. We shall see. And I also would say, when it comes to the Stillbillies, last time I kind of kept my business private about my contract and the negotiations and everything else. And, maybe in hindsight, that was a bad idea. Maybe I should have been more open about it. So I feel like I would like to be more open with my career path going forward. So again, when it comes to the Titans, that one was tough. And when it comes to any hope for the future, any hope for the organization, any hope for, I don't have it. I just, unless Amy Adams Strunk today were to be on her plane flying back to Houston. And I did laugh my ass off when they showed Jason McCourty talking to her on the field. And they said, Amy Adams Strunk did not have a press conference today, but Jason McCourty did talk to her on the field before the game. Jason, what did you take away from talking to Amy Adams Strunk? I did kind of laugh. And McCourty was like, she said it was a great week of practice. And I'm like, how would she know? She was at her home. She wasn't out there at practice. How would she know? But when it comes to Amy and it comes to this fucked up mess that is her organization, the one thing I hope she hears, and the one thing I think she hopes, I hope she hears this. And I know the Titans hear what I say, because the Titans, and they're doing their jobs, but I know they hear what I say. Amy, blow this whole thing up. Blow it up. Get rid of everybody that got you in this position and move on. There is, speaking of which, on the terrible owner front, there is one little nugget that I heard, and I maybe was thinking about saving this for the show, but I'll just do it now. I heard from somebody that really knows the Colts really, really well, like the inside of that organization. And, the Colts are winning some football games and they're doing well and okay, whatever. Now, they haven't played anybody, but they are doing well. And I was told by somebody who would know that apparently the 3 daughters that now own the Colts, Irsay's kids, what I was told was, you think that guy's fucking nuts? These kids are off their freaking rockers. I was like, this thing is going to be a shit show because those daughters are so fucked up. Now, I don't know that to be true. I'm just telling you, that's what somebody who is in the know told me. So at least we can somewhat enjoy the fact that Jacksonville doesn't have a clue, Indianapolis doesn't have a clue, and I'm not totally sure Houston has a clue either. Now, I will say this about Houston. There is something that I heard from somebody who I really respect that is very bad for Houston, big picture, but I can't share it because they would kill me if they found out about that. Sam says, you're needed as a local sports talk voice. I'm not really in local sports talk anymore, but I hear you. Do what's best for you, but I hope you don't get out of the Titans talk. Again, my hope would be that I can do an hour local every day. And the second show would be an hour national, kind of every day. And again, the whole podcast game, it's all so different than what I'm used to, but the world is a different place. Great show today here on Postgame Live. I want to thank Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical for being a part of this. And I'm very, very sad because I just don't know when it comes to the Titans. I just don't know if they'll ever get out of this. I know how to. I've told you how to. Blow the whole thing up, bring in somebody with experience that knows what they're doing. But I know that's not going to happen. I know the Titans are not going to look in the mirror and say, oh my God, we blew the Cam Ward pick. We need to do something about it. I know the Titans are going to let Chad Brinker hire the next coach. I know Amy is going to get sweet-talked by Burke and Chad into believing things that are not true, the same way she's been sweet-talked in by Burke and Chad into firing Mike Vrabel and giving Rand Carthon more power. So I know it's not going to get any better, but again, I've given my 2 cents, which is if you want to be good, if you want to turn this thing around, blow it all up. Get rid of everybody. And let this be the moment in which you could not be more embarrassed by what happened today. Let this be the moment where you realized the snake oil you purchased, and it's okay to do that, and that it's time to move on. That's my belief. Great show today. Post-game live. Again, like and subscribe. We are live tomorrow reacting to everything at 2 o'clock here on the Stillman Co. YouTube page. Like and subscribe, part of the 440 Sports Network, and wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for listening to Post-game Live. We will see everybody tomorrow. Travis says, Jared, you taking sponsors for the program? Yes. Yes, we are. So, yes, absolutely. That's it for us. We're out of here. Stillman and Company. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we will see everybody live tomorrow at 2.